Welcome to my channel French Pulse. Let's enjoy learning French. Today we are going to learn about transitive and intransitive verbs. What does it mean? Now some verbs that are conjugated with être in all compound tenses. What are the compound tenses? Some of the compound tenses that we have learned: passé composé, futur antérieur and pluscuparfait can be used transitively. What do we mean by transitively? When there is a direct object with it, as well as intransitively. That means, what is it intransitively? When it doesn't have a direct object. So when used transitively, these verbs are always conjugated with avoir. We are going to learn a couple of verbs which can be used transitively as well as intransitively. Let's see some of the verbs that can be used transitively as well as intransitively. The verbs are passer, rentrer, retourner, monter, descendre, sortir. So, elle a passé la trousse à Marc. If you notice here, we're using the auxiliary avoir because it's followed by a direct object. So whenever these verbs are followed by a direct object, they are used transitively. So elle a passé la trousse. This is a direct object, à Marc. So she is passing the pouch. She is not moving, but the object is moving. So therefore we've used avoir. Let's look at the same verb used intransitively. So, elle est passée par l'église. So, it's used with the auxiliary être because we are showing movement of the subject. She passed by the church. Another point to note that there is a preposition here. So, that tells us that the subject is moving. So, elle est passée par l'église. The next example, il a rentré les romans. He returned the novels. Now, les romans is the direct object. So here we go, il a rentré. Therefore, the verb rentrer will use auxiliary avoir because it's used transitively. There's a direct object. And it is not the subject moving, but the object. He's returned the novels. Il est rentré dans la classe. Now in this example we can see he returned to the class. So dans is the preposition and it is a subject moving. So we are using the verb être as auxiliary. Let's take another example. Il a retourné le stylo. Again here, to return the pen. So what did he do? He returned the pen. This retourner is using auxiliary avoir because it's followed by a direct object, and that is the stylo. And it does not show the movement of the subject. It shows that the pen is returned. The object is moving. So therefore we are using the auxiliary avoir. Il est retourné chez lui. So he returned home, back home. So here we see movement of the subject. Therefore, it is used intransitively with the verb être as auxiliary, and we have a clue for us, that's a preposition. So whenever we see a preposition in these sentences, you can see it gives us a clue that the subject is moving. And in that case, it's used intransitively. So we need to use the auxiliary être in such a case. Let's look at some more examples with the other verbs. Let's look at some more examples. Elle a monté les bagages. So she took up the luggages. So here, monte is using the verb auxiliary avoir because it's followed by a direct object. So, when it's followed by a direct object, then it is used transitively. Therefore, we're using the verb avoir as auxiliary. Let's take another example with Monte. Elle est montée sur la moto. She got onto the motorcycle. So it's a subject moving. Moreover, we've got a preposition here, sur, which tells us the subject is moving. So we're using the auxiliary être. There has to be an agreement. Il a descendu les valises. He brought down the suitcases. So again, this is followed by a direct object. That means this is used transitively. So it has to use the verb avoir. Whereas, il est descendu par l'escalier. He came down by stairs. This is where the subject is moving. So we're using the auxiliary être, and you also see it's followed by a preposition. This is a clue for me. And the subject is moving. So we're using the auxiliary être. It's used intransitively. Il a sorti les livres de la bibliothèque. So, il a sorti followed by a direct object. So, therefore, it's used transitively. And we have to use the auxiliary avoir. So, he took out the books from the library. Whereas, let's see how it's used intransitively. Elle est sortie de la bibliothèque. She came out of the library. She left the library. So here we are using the verb être because it shows movement of the subject, and there has to be an agreement. That is subject-verb agreement, and it's followed by a preposition. I hope you have understood how these verbs can be used both transitively, that is when it's followed by a direct object, and can also be used intransitively when there is a preposition. In the description box, there is a link to a quiz on the same. There is also a link to my Padlet as well as my website, French Pulse. Like, share and subscribe to my channel. Au revoir et à bientôt.